Hey guys, we always wondered how those professionals get those nice clean edits on their pictures to make them look so beautiful and just amazing. I can show you how to do that. It's only one simple tool. It takes 5 minutes. Stick around, you'll find out how. Okay guys, so for this video we're going to be using Adobe Lightroom, and this is a very professional software to use to edit your photographs. So the first thing is we are going to be editing this picture today. And it's just one I took down by the water next to where I live. And we are going to be basically showing you a rundown of how Adobe Lightroom works. So here is just the image. You can click to zoom in as long as you don't have a tool selected. And now let's go to here. These are just the basic edits for everything in your image. So we have exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. Those are your main things that you're going to be using. Exposure adjusts just the overall lighting of your image. We're not really going to use that because I managed to get a pretty decent exposure on this picture already. So contrast is going to basically determine the contrast from your light colors, well, your lights and your darks in your image. So your blacks, your whites, your shadows, and your highlights. So we're going to actually turn this down because it makes the picture look a lot nicer if you turn it down in this specific picture. And you can look, this is called a histogram. It's too spread out. You don't want it to look like this. This is a very spread out histogram, and you definitely want to bring it closer together to make it look a lot nicer, and it's just going to instantly raise the quality of the image. And this is a pretty blown out image in the highlights. There's a lot of whites. You don't really have a lot of definition in the sky. We're going to work on that later. But for now, let's turn down those highlights. And this is going to make those bright colors, bright everything in the image just turn down. And next we're going to work on our shadows. This is going to be basically doing the opposite of the highlights, focusing on those darker colors. So we're going to actually turn those up a little bit. And then we are going to turn down our whites. And we can instantly see a lot more color coming out back here and even in the water. And now let's actually lower those blacks a little, just a smidge, because it creates it's called like a black film, I believe, and it just makes a more cinematic look on your picture. That's kind of what everyone's going for these days. And now we're going to start working a little bit on color, just touch on it a little bit, and we are going to turn the temperature of it down just a tiny bit to make it look a lot more natural. And now we're going to be going down to the effects tab. And we have a few things here. I normally only mess with these three. And this is the texture. This just basically makes the image look a lot more crisp on the edges and the more fine details. Just, for example, these trees, all the leaves. The clarity just adds a bit of a punch to your image. It's always nice to turn that up just a smidge, but you don't want to do a little overboard because that just looks kind of off. It adds a lot more shadows and takes away the color from the image. So I just add a little bit there to make it look nicer. And then just add a little bit of dehaze. And this basically gets rid of the haze from places in your picture where they aren't very defined. You can kind of tell the difference from here to there. Okay, so now we're going to start working on the sky by using this thing called a linear gradient, which is found right here. And we are just going to drag from top down. And what we are doing by making this is, I'll show you in a second, all the red is now the part we're editing. Everything below it, we're not editing, we're not focusing on that. And this box basically determines how much you want the image to, the difference between the part that's being edited and not being edited, how much you want the transition to be, because you can make it a more smooth transition or more harsh. Like if I did it from here to here, and then I was to go up to exposure, it's a sharp line. But if I was to go now and, sorry, let me make it like that, it's more feathered is what it's called. So we're actually just going to go like that. Let's turn the exposure back down to nothing. No changes. Okay. So now that's everything that we're editing. We're focusing on the sky now. So we're going to make this sky look a lot nicer instantly by taking this dehaze tool and turning it up, because now we're going to start seeing a lot more of those blues in the sky, and everything's just going to look a lot nicer. And we're going to add some clarity to give it a punch once again, and turn that texture up to give those clouds a nice layer and make them look good. So now we're going to go to our contrast, and actually we're going to turn it up because we want to be able to see the difference between the clouds and the blue sky. We're going to turn our highlights down so that our clouds aren't popping as much. Our shadows up to once again kind of give it more of a contrast from the lights and the darks in the image. And we're actually going to bring the whites just a bit down in this specific image just to make those clouds once again just have more of a defined image. And now we are pretty much done. We can adjust the saturation on this to make those blues look a little better. I think right about there looks pretty nice. So now we're going to work on the bottom half of the image. Okay, so I'm going to make another box, and we're going to place it right there. Bring it up just a bit to kind of blend in with the sky. And we are going to press invert because right now it's doing the top part and we don't want to do the sky again. That's why it's looking like that. So we're going to press invert, and now it's going to be focusing on this part of the image, and we're just going to reset all of these. And now this top part is still going to be edited, and now we have our bottom part to work with. So we're instantly going to want to go down again and get that dehaze tool and just turn it up a little bit to give it more of a defined image in the parts farther away from us, and give it some more clarity once again to give it a pop and the texture. Because we already have a pretty well edited image as far as lighting goes, because we did that in the beginning. So now we're just really going in here and fine-tuning everything. So we're going to actually bring the contrast down a bit. There's a lot of dark parts in this image, so let's actually try and fix that by bringing up those shadows, bringing up those blacks, but still making it line up with the top part, because that's affected by this gradient right here. If I can hit it, let me hit it for you guys. You can see it's affected. As you can see, the tree line's affected. So we have to kind of make it look smooth. But as you can see, this looks pretty good. We could probably adjust the tint to about right there. And we have a pretty good image. So now we're going to actually go back, and this is another more advanced thing to kind of get into more detail. We're going to actually do some color correction on this part called the color mixer. And these are just ways to adjust each color individually in the image. And it's using HSL, which is hue, saturation, and luminance. Hue is just kind of the lighting. It gives off what color it's going to be. Saturation is how much that color pops. And luminance is basically doing all of these things, all the lighting, but for that specific color. It's pretty much just the exposure. So now to do this picture correctly, you would probably want to start off with the trees because they kind of are more important in this image, that and the sky. So we're going to start off with the trees, which are a green and yellow. So we're actually going to do yellow first, because if you wanted to, you could actually just get this color picker tool and it will select the right color. And as you can see, it selected the yellow for us to use. So we're actually going to bring this up, the hue, a little more towards the green, because we want these trees to look really nice and green. And then make it just pop a little bit. And about right there for the luminance is nice. I'm kind of looking about right here. As you can see, it's going up and down. Let's bring it to about right there is nice. And now let's do the same for the greens, because we know it's going to be doing the same. Let's keep it to about right there is good. Make it pop just a little. Don't want to go over, and that's too much. It kind of looks unnatural. And we'll go to about right there. And then for this, I think we should bring the luminance up to bring the greens, more of the greens out in the picture. So now let's focus on the sky. So I'm just going to color pick by selecting that. Okay, so now it's saying that's the color we should use. So I'm actually going to make it a little more blue to about right there. You don't want to make it too baby blue. And make it pop to about right there is nice. And then turn it down a bit so that there's once again more of a contrast between the clouds and the blue sky. And now that we've done that, you can also see it's kind of changed a little bit down in the water. And now that all we have left for this specific image is the reds in this barn here, this little house on the river. So we're actually going to start with our hues and bring them up a little to make them look more like how the reds looked in the image when I was out there. I always like to make it look more natural what it actually is if I was to go there in person, and this is about the same color. And we are going to adjust that saturation just a little bit. I think a little more would be nice. And then bring that luminance up. If you're not sure, you can kind of play around, see which one works best for you, what type of creative mindset you have in mind. And just like that, guys, we have a completed image in Adobe Lightroom. We can see before and after. It looks instantly way better. You're taking your pictures to the next level, and you're going to make your pictures stand out. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.